Hello, hello. We are going live for Tuesday Talks today, and we have an amazing person called Heidi Dunstan going live with us today. She is a grief counselor, grief advocate, helping in changing the grief narrative. Also a best-selling author and a keynote speaker as well, and she's helping everybody out there to change the narrative of grief. Thank you very much for hopping on to the Tuesday Talks. I've done a short introduction for you already, but in true Tuesday Talk style, we'll pass the mic on to you to just let us know who you are, what you do. And the question that we will kick off with after that is, and why do you do it?
Sounds good. So my name's Heidi Dunstan. I am a Canadian that just recently moved down to Mexico this past weekend. So I am down in the southern world enjoying the warm weather. And I run a program called Lean Into Grief. And I'm starting to finish off a book about legacy and loss. And I've started this program due to firsthand experience in losing my husband unexpectedly almost 3 years ago. And I learned in my process of grief and grieving with people around me that many of us have never been taught how to grieve. And so many people around us say things to grievers that just miss the mark. And they say things that really could hurt the griever. And they don't do it with intent. They do it because they just aren't educated. They don't know. And we don't live in a culture or in a society that handles pain well and that we're comfortable with pain. And so we often end up trying to find silver linings, trying to find the positive. And the reality is grief is a normal response to a healthy thing that happens in life. I've yet to meet anybody who's immune to death. And so it means we're all going to grieve. And so I really do take an educational approach to provide people the opportunity to learn some different things to say and not say to somebody who's grieving so that we can all grieve with a little bit of grace. I find that grief is as individuals our fingerprint. And when we move through great grief, we sometimes, because we don't know, we sometimes try to think that people are doing it wrong because they're not doing it the way we do it. And so, again, teaching people and educating people so that we can support each other, because grief is love, and the grief should be done in connection, not in isolation.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that amazing story. I'm kind of taken aback by just listening to that. So many golden nuggets are already in there by that grief is part of love. It's not something. Well, yeah, it comes across as sad, but that sadness is because of love there. And yes, that 100% that I will agree there that we are not educated enough in terms of how to handle that side, grief. And I sometimes myself, I mean, when you were just saying that, and I just sometimes wonder myself, how would I handle should my parents pass away? I know that will happen one day. Maybe ready for it in my mind, but when that happens, what would I do? How would I handle it?
Yeah.
Because and it's something I've not experienced yet in terms of a close family that so I've not experienced that connection, but I can think that yeah, I would not know where to start. I would not know what to do. And how to cope with it. How do you go about every day of your life? Because work will expect you to come back in after a week or so. I know I've heard in US it's after 2-3 days. In UK you at least getting a week. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know how it is in Canada. Is that the same time that you get from work? Is it a few days to just do the things that you need to do?
Yeah, you get just a few days. Sometimes your doctor can put you on medical leave, like a stress leave. But then again, you're only receiving about 60% of your income. And, one of the things that we've learned along the way is that a lot of us, because we're such a death-averse culture, we're also not prepared for death. And so many people have to move through some pretty challenging financial issues as well, because one, a funeral is never expensive or never cheap. It's got quite the expense to it, and it's unexpected. And two, many people don't have insurance. And so, if it's a spouse, or if there's still young children involved, or if there's still bills to pay, lots of people go from a double income to a single income overnight. And then on top of that, their world is so different that it is really hard for them to just go back to work. I owned my own company. I didn't work for almost 5 weeks. Like, Mike died 2 days after Christmas, and then by the time we did all the arrangements, it was 2, 3 weeks, and then I still had things to deal with as well in terms of legalities and estates, and it's a bit overwhelming. And so, and then on top of that, some people, I mean, they have to go back to an office and feel like the world is normal, and their world is far from normal. And so we're just in these places and spaces that are super difficult to navigate. They're difficult for the griever, but they're also difficult for those people on that inner circle. They maybe not be family, they may not know all the inner workings of what's going on, but they know enough that they see that the person that they care about is not the same anymore.
I agree that 100%. So in terms of so your work, who does that more work is considered towards? Is that the actual person who's grieving, or the people that surround the griever? Is because I'm looking in the way of a lot of time, like myself, I think it's also a curse of being a man, a male. It's like you are emotionally challenged to understand those emotions, even though I think I am well versed. But I've got a 14-year-old, challenge of her being a 14-year-old, but then there are emotional challenges when she will say things that I'm like, oh no, I don't know what to say here now, right? So what is right or what is wrong? I think it's right, and then she'll turn around. That didn't really help. I'm like, oh, okay. So and obviously when the person is grieving, that's even that's like walking on eggshells, because you don't know what would now just spark something that would not supposed to be there, right? Or that spiral them more into something they are already thinking of. So how does your support works there?
So right now, I really just encourage people. I'm creating an audience, and so I have my Lean Into Grief on Facebook, my Lean Into Grief on Instagram, and then I also do Lean Into Grief rooms on Clubhouse. And we talk about things to say and not say. So certain things, like I say, don't ask a griever, how are you? Because how are you is a phrase where we're supposed to say, I'm good, I'm okay, or I'm fine, and a griever's none of those. So I always encourage you to ask a question like, how's today? Because grief leaves you living in the moment. And so that gives the person the ability to say, I haven't slept, or I'm hungry, I can't eat, I hate eating alone, I miss my person. And it really lets them just be where they are in that moment. Or they could say, I'm so tired of dealing with this, can we just have a normal conversation? Because grief sometimes can be a bit overwhelming, and it's like, they might want a bite-sized bit of normal just to play pretend for a little bit. But a lot of grievers often say they get tired of hearing, how are you? And they get tired of lying, and they find it exhausting to hear it day and have to answer it lie after lie after lie. They don't feel like they're seen. And then I also encourage people, the one thing that we on the outside often need answers is, pardon me, is how did they die? We often want to ask them what was the cause of death, and that isn't a question that supports our griever. That's a question for ourselves, and it's really not necessarily necessary, because we don't need that information. The person's dead. We can't bring them back, and so don't force that person to have to go through the trauma of reliving that day. That day is etched in my being. December 27th, 2018, the day my husband died, I don't think will ever leave my life. And I can remember every moment, every smell, every movement, and I don't want to have to relive it for everybody. It isn't for everybody. If you say, was it expected? Was it an expected loss? Sometimes that helps because you'll know if they've been ill or not. But if it's been an unexpected loss, there could be a lot of trauma. Could have been a murder, it could have been a suicide, it could have been an overdose, could have been an accident. And so don't force that person to live into those trauma spaces. And then I also often just say, if you don't know what to say, it's okay to say that. It's okay to say, I see you're hurting. I see you miss your person, and use the person's name. Pardon me. And then really just acknowledge the fact that you don't know what to say. You don't have words because you can't fix it. And so it's okay to say, I don't have anything to say, but I want you to know that you're in my thoughts. You know, you're important to me and you matter, and I see. Because so many people say nothing, and it leaves people to tell stories in their own head of why they said nothing. And if you care about your person, whether it's a friend or a family member, you know, you want them to know that I care about you. I see you're hurting. You know, let them know, let them be seen. Pain deserves to be witnessed. It deserves to be seen and acknowledged. And a lot of times we try to just gloss over it and pretend like it's not there. And then it just means that that person has to do it by themselves.
I love this, and thank you for sharing the you can already see the comments if you there that people people are finding this so helpful, and it's amazing to hear the ask is not to ask how are you, instead you say how is today, because those are generic questions that we are accustomed to asking anybody we see on a daily basis, right? Oh, how are you? Or how's it going? And things like that. And then they will respond into that generic because that's how you are attuned to as well, to just respond. Things definitely won't be that great for the other person, but the right question I would moving forward would remember that now is how is today. And that can be used for anything after a trauma, after or any sort of thing. So that's amazing to know that that question there is actually a much more supportive question to ask. And moving on to that big support being honest. So that's what I'm hearing, is to be honest with the person that yes, I do not know what to say here, but you are in my thoughts. I am here to support. What do you need me to do? Things like that, because they might be thinking of 100 other things that they do not know where to start off with, what to do, and just might not want to ask others of it. And we need to be then coming forward and offering that support at that time in as much better way as possible. Is that something that you promote as well in terms of offering the support?
Yeah, a lot of times what people do is they'll say, call if you need. And in those early days, weeks, and months, depending on who they lost, they don't have the ability to call. Their world is different and it's really hard. And so I always encourage people to offer specific help. Like, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. Can I pick up some food for you? Can I pick up groceries? The grocery store is a landmine, especially if it's a child or a spouse that they've lost, or a grandchild. They go through the store and they see the person's favorite foods, the things that they would buy just for them. And it can just bring an early griever themselves to their knees. And then for some reason, I don't know what it is at grocery stores, but the music they play always seems to be something that tugs at grievers' heartstrings. And so I often have seen abandoned shopping carts at grocery stores. And I used to think it was that somebody realized they forgot their wallet. Well, after I lost my husband, I realized it was grievers retreating to their car to have a safe space to cry. So offering, can I bring some food? Or, is it hard eating alone? Would you like to bring us something? Would you like me to bring something over? Would you like to join me for dinner? Sometimes it's as simple as, I lived in Canada. It could be, I'd love to stop by if you'd like and shovel the snow or mow the lawn or help with some yard work. Are there things that I can specifically do? And I offer specific things because they often don't even realize that they're not getting done. And I always just say, if you're going to offer, please make sure you follow through with it, because if you don't follow through with your offer, it makes them feel even more alone. That they, you offered and now you haven't, and it can be quite painful, and they don't understand why. And they think they're already struggling with loss, and then to have those kind of extra things piled on, it can be quite hurtful. So be specific, offer what you can, and sometimes it could be just like, hey, do you want me to take the dogs for a walk? How, it can be that specific, and we're able to support each other in a great way. The person feels seen, you feel acknowledged, and you have no idea. Like, I had people that offered something as simple as taking out my garbage. It Months later, I was like, you have no idea how important that was for me to not have to deal with it. And it seems so trivial, but it was so big that it was just one less thing I had to think about. So the little things do make a big difference.
That's amazing to hear that. I mean, it's that the little things do, matter in terms of support. Uh, is if you are able to do that, just offer that specific support. As simple as just taking the trash out, which is, nobody thinks of, because it's part of the routine, right? Oh, every Friday you will take it out, or whatever the day that is. It is this just that, right? And taking that away, taking that responsibility of just that sort of help also lightens the person's load of stress. That is, so it's less stress, and be stress relieved over there, in terms of, I don't have to worry about it, because I didn't even know that existed for that time. That, because I'm sure 100% in that moment, the garbage does not exist. Yeah, it's piling up because people are putting stuff in it. You're putting stuff in it, but that day does not exist that I need to take it out, right? So it's amazing that you've just mentioned that, because it's the so small, yet very massive effect over there, which also takes me to when you decided to help others, and you already had a business that you said that you were already running. So you come from an entrepreneurial background already. Um, how was that for you, so that you had to pivot and do this as new?
It was one of those things actually early on after losing Mike. I think it was only about 3 days. Actually, I hadn't even planned the funeral yet, and I had clients asking me for invoices, and I had clients I own a virtual assistance business, and they knew he had passed. They knew I was offline, and they just, some really insignificant things were coming up, and I was like, I can't deal with this. And then even 3 days after his funeral, I had somebody say, hey, when's the list of things for Heidi to do is growing. When are you back to work? Where I had some other amazing clients who were just like, Heidi, what is it that you need right now? How can we still want to work with you, but what's the best way? What does that look like now? And they acknowledged the fact that things needed to be different. And I made big mistakes too. I was a griever, and I said some things that missed the mark with people who had lost somebody. And I really realized that even me going through it, I'm not good at this. And so how could somebody who's never even experienced death or loss could navigate it's a messy journey. And so I just decided, I had a childhood dream to write a book. My husband knew about that childhood dream, and so his legacy is helping my dream come true. And I think it's really cool to be working on this book and sharing his story and working with some of his friends. It's a collaboration book, to be able to make a difference, to take the pain that I've had to live through and make a difference, and be able to support others, and hopefully be able to teach people how to grieve with grace.
That's very interesting. So that, to hear that, how some people were, I'll use the word of being inconsiderate of, right? Oh, list is growing. How are you gonna catch up? Because they're just concerned about their side of things, and then you had the polar opposite, where people were offering support in terms of, okay, what do you need from us to do as well? So, right, we understand what's happened, and how can we now make this work going into the future. It's amazing to hear that. And the book that you have, do you want to touch upon a little bit more? Is it already released or
No, it's
um,
still in the I have a book out. I have a collaboration book that I was in at Blue Talks Volume 3. And I wrote a chapter called Grieving with Grace. And I have a new book that'll probably be released in early 2022 called Journey of Loss and Learning How Legacy can help support grief. And basically, it's my story of losing Mike and the pieces of his life that are still intertwined in mine, but then also 10 of Mike's friends who, well, had to move through grief in their own way and losing him, but also the legacies that they have held that are still intertwined in their life, and how those legacies help to keep his memory alive and help them to move through some of the grief. Because when we can find our ways to love our person, when they're not here, is how we can help to move through grief, not move on. It's move forward or move through it. So
okay, that's amazing to hear. Also, the last line is like resonating with me quite a lot. It's like it's not moving on or moving forward; it's moving through it. It's a case of accepting it and recognizing the pain that is there, which will do wonders. If I put simply here that way, that you've realized that you are going through something. So it's not a case of, right, okay, I know now. Can I just put it back on the shelf and continue doing something else? That never happens, right? It's not, it's never going to happen. So it's good to accept as what it is and take it with you on that journey, and go, you will go through it. So a lot, you hear that the famous saying, time will heal all wounds. What's your take on that when it comes to the grieving side?
I don't think it's a fair statement. Time changes things, but I can't say it heals it, because I can tell you that there are days that are just as intense with grief now than there was those first days, weeks, and months. Grief, there is no plan. It has taught me that I have to be a little bit flexible, because it can hit me on a day when I least expect it. And I, for a long time, kept asking, why do I have to go through this? Like, I thought I'd moved through this emotion already. I thought I did this work already. And what really, I was just fighting the emotion. And so I stopped asking why and just said, okay, I'm feeling this today and I need to. And the hard part is grief doesn't come with its own little dimmer switch. I'd have zero control over it. And so I have to move through it as it hits me. And sometimes there's a reason, sometimes it could be an important day, right? In the United States this week is Thanksgiving. That can be a really triggering time for somebody who's grieving the loss of somebody, because that chair is empty. That role that they played in the kitchen is empty. All of that can be really hard. As we move through the Christmas holiday season, same thing, right? And then on top of that, if you look at when the person's birthday is, or anniversaries, or when the day they died, those are all days that can be really difficult. So if you're supporting somebody who's grieving, making a note of some of those important days and putting them in your calendar to refresh every year, and reaching out to the person and say, hey, thinking of you today. I know you've probably dealing with some emotions today. And I don't say that you're having a bad day or that it's going to be a rough day, because I have, Mike's birthday, I choose to honor his birthday, and I go out to a restaurant that he loves, or I go and do something that he would love to do. But there are days like the day he died, anniversary is a hard one for me. And so, I appreciate it when here 3 years later, somebody can send me a message and saying that they're thinking about me. And I also just encourage people to acknowledge the fact that, when you say to somebody, time heals all wounds, it doesn't make them feel better. In that moment, it doesn't help them at all, because they hurt right now. If you're seeing them with tears in their eyes, or that they're struggling with emotion, they don't want to know about what the future looks like. They want to know why it hurts right now, or have some sort of being witness to that, right? So be gentle. I always say use the words they use. If somebody says that my husband died, use husband died. Somebody says my son passed away, use passed away, because those words matter in grief. And I always take my my cue from the griever themselves, because some people, the word death or died is too hard. And it's too harsh, and it's like nails on a chalkboard, and it doesn't resonate for them. And so I always use the words that grievers use, and I also just really listen to where they're at. And if they open up and want to share, I don't say, at least you still have, or but at least you could have had, if your sentence starts with at least you, it means that you are negating how they feel. So just listen. That's all they need. They just need you to listen. They just need you to be supportive and hold space and love them exactly where they're at, even if it doesn't make sense, because that's the important part. They just need to move through those emotions. And if they're willing to open up and be vulnerable with you, honor that. It's sacred space, I believe, because we don't get it a lot. And I know, listening to some of your other recordings, you guys in a lot of your other recordings talk about the fact that, we just need to see each other more and hold space and love each other where we're at.
Yeah, 100%. I agree there as well. It's a case of recognizing the other person as well. And I love that you touched upon, just mirroring their words. So because that actually matters more, um, especially in pain time when somebody is using certain words, is because they might have attachment to it, or it's discomfort in hearing the opposite of the word, or the word death, as you said, or died. They they don't understand those words, or they're still maybe still realizing and accepting it, but being passed on is a softer word for them at the moment to use until they totally understand what's happened and go forth with what they need to do. But that's totally 100%. I agree with that. Is to mirror what they are actually saying. So listening is the key fact there. 100%. It would be to listen, not just sit there and that show up that, oh yeah, I'm here, but it's to give your ears as well, so see what they're saying and then respond or support accordingly to that, which is amazing share here. People who are watching this now live, or will hear this after as a IGTV, or it will move on to podcast but later on as well. If you're finding this interesting or inspiring, it's recommended for you to now share it with whoever you may wish to. If there was a spark in your mind and a person came in your mind, just tag them in there or share it with them, because what I always say is if you had an inspiring moment by watching or reading something, you should not keep it to yourself. You should always share it with others, because you do not know who's waking up or gone to bed thinking of a better today or tomorrow. So this is something we need to do with this episode as well. It has been so informative for myself as well, and I can feel the connection that you have there. It's your personality is quite easygoing as well, in terms of you want to open up to you and speak more. So with your services, how does that work? Do you do one-to-one, or is there like a group as well? How do people reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm currently not offering any kind of programs right now. I am going to offer, and it'll hit my website probably next week. The web designer's just building it out. Is I'm offering a free 1-hour masterclass on how to support somebody grieving through the holidays, and that'll be on December 21st. And then just follow me on LinkedIn, or pardon me, Facebook, Instagram, and then feel free to join a Clubhouse room, and look forward to the upcoming book. You'll see pre-sales probably open up in early January. So.
Amazing. I'm definitely going to follow you on Clubhouse. I'm quite engaged there as well myself. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out there. I would like to say thank you very much for coming on, even though we had a little glitch in the beginning, but we got to do this. What would you like to say to wrap up and close this to the audience who are listening now?
You know what? Grief is a tender topic, and all of us are going to be impacted with it. Grief isn't just about when somebody dies. It could be about a relationship or change in finance, change in health. So be gentle with each other. We've all been moving through grief as we've moved through this pandemic. And so, realize that we don't know what everybody's dealing with. And when we can actually see pain and witness it, it will help us to be able to support each other better, love each other where we're at, and if we're grieving, grieve with grace.
Amazing. Thank you very much for an amazing episode today. And we'll stay connected, and I'll keep an eye out your future book when it's out. And we'll certainly talk about it a little bit more. Who knows? You might come back again on Tuesday Talks and talk about your book.
Love that. I love what you do. Thanks for everything that you do. It's making a big difference in this world.
All right. Thank you very much. And everybody else, we will see you next Tuesday with another amazing person. And we will discuss what they are doing and why they're doing it. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.